Здравствуйте, товарищи, and welcome to our ninth day of our Month of Mod celebration. And today, I'm bringing to you yet another heavy hitter. This is probably the only other mod besides DayZ which has either equaled or surpassed its original game in terms of popularity and recognition. This mod is so closely tied to its original game, but at the same time it's its own completely independent being. It's gotten so much recognition and it's so enjoyable that generally any serious player of the original game probably wouldn't be caught dead without this mod. I'm of course talking about the Kaiserreich mod for Hearts of Iron 2. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be using the Darkest Hour version of the Kaiserreich mod. So, what does Kaiserreich do? Kaiserreich weaves its own alternate historical fiction based on the Hearts of Iron 2 engine. And the main crux of this engine, the linchpin that this entire alternate historical narrative, revolves around is the question of what would happen if Germany had won World War I. The answer is, of course, Kaiserreich happens. So within this alternate historical narrative, just about every country has been touched or changed in some way from what we understand it to be in our own historical reality. Now, let's go over some of the big players. We've got, of course, Germany, who is the world superpower now, global power now, tons of colonies all over the world, have a lot of infrastructure, they're in a great position, unquestionably the most powerful country in the world at this point. And there's no Nazis, of course, because the Kaiser won World War I, so he still runs Germany, so that has an effect on Germany's governmental stances and policies and so on and so forth. Now moving on to France and Great Britain, both of which, having lost the war, have undergone some of the same types of trials and tribulations that Germany did, resulting in a socialist revolution in both countries. France is now called the Commune of France, and Britain is now called the Union of Britain. This has a major effect on Britain because the socialist revolution has forced a lot of the royalists and royal family members and other types of elites that lived in Britain to flee Britain and move to Canada. So now Canada has become this great beacon of British imperialism and British power and is still the uniting force for all the remaining Commonwealth countries that are still loyal to the royalists in Britain. Also, in Russia, a strong Germany has prevented a communist revolution in Russia, so at this point Russia is still czarist. However, they're not going to be able to keep the lid on that boiling pot for long, so Russia generally explodes into all types of revolutions and revolts, and any number of crazy things can happen there. But speaking of crazy revolts and rebellions and countries splitting apart, let's talk about the United States, because the main difference in the United States is that President Roosevelt was not elected. Therefore, types of policies like the New Deal and other things that relieved some of the Americans during the Great Depression weren't implemented. So unrest boils over in America, leading to a great civil war and various factions emerging like the Combined Syndicates of America, the American Union State, California secedes, and again, it's a whole crazy shitstorm where any number of things could happen. Of course, there are many other countries within the game that we haven't talked about, such as what's happened in China and India and Austria, and the Ottoman Empire still exists, but we don't have time to cover all of them. But based on what I've said, that is a good place to set up the three new factions which exist in Kaiserreich. You have, of course, the German faction, who I am almost certainly going to mispronounce because I always seem to mispronounce it, which is the Mittel Europa, which of course consists of Germany and puppet states and other allies. You have the Entente, which consists of the defeated Entente powers from World War I, so those are factions still loyal to Britain, and factions still loyal to France, or the governments that used to exist there before the revolution. And then finally you have the revolutionary Sindetern governments, which are the various socialist states which exist throughout the world. But it's from this setup that you get to really dig into Kaiserreich, and anyone who's a fan of history, and especially alternate history, is going to have a ton of fun with this mod, just exploring all the different crazy things that could happen, because it's going to take you many playthroughs before you realize all the events and all the subtle little changes that have come as a result of Germany winning World War I within this alternate historical scenario. So, if you want to learn more, you could always watch my Let's Play of the Darkest Hour version of Kaiserreich as the Combined Syndicates of America on josephvstalin.com, and sooner or later that'll find its way to YouTube. Or you can alternatively play the game yourself, and if you're a fan of history at all, or a history buff, or just enjoy these crazy alternate historical scenarios, you know what? You're going to have a lot of fun with Kaiserreich. Man, I could talk about Kaiserreich for hours and hours and hours. But, you know what? I'm trying to keep these videos short and to the point, so if you want to learn more, there are plenty of options open to you. So, I hope you've enjoyed this 9th installment of our Month of Mods celebration, and until tomorrow, this has been Joseph Vizaranovic Stalin, signing off for now. I'll see you guys next time.